105 Network. This is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. Glad you are with us tonight. We're talking about an important topic, one that affects so many children and even adults, but it's bullying. And we're talking about this. This is October is National Bullying Month, but it got us on this topic that again affects so many people. Why do some children bully others? How can we work to prevent this? What can adults do if they see this happening? What are some of the signs that might be out there? We can talk about all of that, and of course we want to hear from you. Give us a call. But our guest is joining us via Zoom from all the way out in California. So Dr. Eve Goldstein, clinical psychologist, founder of the Child Parent Educator Collective. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So let me ask, what is the Child Parent Educator Collective? What is that?
So the Child Parent Educator Collective is actually an organization that my colleague Danielle Matthew, who wrote a book about bullying that you should also check out. Basically, what our goal is to really help support communities, because we saw that for our youth in particular, that prior to the pandemic, we were already having mental health challenges. But throughout the pandemic, those challenges really increased. And now we're seeing that 1 in 3 children are experiencing a variety of feelings of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and we knew that we needed to make more of a community impact. So what we do is we provide 360 seminar series where we educate teachers, parents, and youth on a whole host of related mental health skills to help support them so that we can come together with a common language and really strengthen our communities.
So we've heard a lot about the mental health impact from the pandemic, the crisis in some cases that exists as a result of the pandemic, and it was certainly serious prior to the pandemic. But how does that impact and influence bullying?
So that's a great question. We saw that bullying, even prior to all of these issues, was at an all-time high, and those issues continue to increase. The reason why is bullying is really not about children being bad children. It's really more about whether or not they have the skills they need to accomplish what their goals are, and also what their feelings of safety, security, confidence in themselves, all of those play a part in how they influence and interact with others. So when you're seeing these many children having issues, they're trying to figure out ways to make themselves maybe feel better or assert some level of control, and that comes out through acting out, through bullying, through these oppositional behaviors. And instead, we want to teach them we want to find out what's at the core of the issue, and then help them gain the skills to really support things like relationship building, creating an understanding of others, how to move forward with empathy. So all of those are social emotional learning skills or life skills that we teach.
Part of me is surprised that bullying is at high levels now. I mean, because when you walk into your kid's school now, there are things that were not there when I walked into my school as a kid. There are, be kind, and no bullying. It's front and center. Whereas when I was growing up, that's not the case. I mean, I don't feel like everyone was focused on be kind, don't bully, social emotional learning, to have small groups where kids talk about these things. So when you say it's higher now, or it's still high now, I'm kind of surprised. And should I be surprised? I mean, because it seems like we're focused on it a lot more now.
I think that it's come out in different ways. So, for example, cyberbullying was not something that you probably had when you were growing up.
No.
And that is definitely the anonymity of being online and the access to the opportunities for bullying are almost greater, because it's not just trying to do it in the classroom or along the side. It can be done at any time in any place. So that's why it's really increased.
That makes sense. Yeah, cyberbullying. Who's more likely to be bullied, males or females, boys or girls?
Well, it's usually a different type of bullying. So when we think about bullying, there's, the leaving out of scenarios and situations. And then there's the direct, negative impact that people sometimes make through negative comments and such. So, and it also depends on age to some degree as well. So I'm not going to say that there's necessarily, or at least in my practice, what I've seen is not necessarily one over the other. I've seen it for males, whether it's in sporting events or situations like that where guys usually get together or kids get together. I've seen it for girls in terms of popularity and cliques and things like that. So you really see it on both sides.
Why is a child likely to bully another child?
It usually stems, like I was saying, if there's some kind of want or desire or expectation that they can't meet, where they're not feeling good about themselves, they typically will act out from others. There can also be modeling of negative behaviors, whether that's in the home or their communities. There can also be issues like an assertive personality where they don't even realize that they're in this bullying situation. It's just more of a personality characteristic. So getting to the underlying reason why the bullying is occurring is really important, because typically people vilify the bully. But the bully is actually in their own form of pain, wanting attention, wanting a place to fit in, wanting to assert control in a place where they don't have control, things like that. So really understanding that piece of it helps us to better address the bullying situation head on.
So you are a clinical psychologist, and so you would meet with kids, I guess. Who comes to you? Do parents bring a kid to you who is maybe bullying others? Do parents bring a kid to you who has been bullied? And kind of, I'm sure they bring both, I guess.
Both.
And walk us through what you would say to each one of those kids. Let's say they bring you a kid who has been bullied. What are the questions you would ask, and kind of walk us through what you do there?
Well, it's really interesting because really, for the most part, you're trying to get at the same information with both, whether it's somebody who's bullying or being bullied. So we use the skill or strategy called the 3 E's, which is empathy, empowerment, and engagement. When we're thinking about empathy, it's trying to understand from their point of view why certain things are happening. So what happened? So if you're somebody who's being bullied, what happened? Explain to me the situation. What was your perception of the situation? If it's somebody who is doing the bullying, it's explain to me what happened from your point of view. Why did that happen? What made you feel like that was something that was okay for you to do, and what were you expecting the outcome to be? So it's really getting curious and having that questioning as opposed to assuming. So that's really making those questions and approaching the child with a sense of empathy.
What is your end goal And what is your advice for a child who is being bullied? What should that child do? Stand up to the bully?
Correct.
Move on? Or what is your, what about that?
So that would be our next set of skills, which are really engagement. So that's what is happening when you are being bullied. Is it that you're just shrinking away and allowing for it to occur? How do you gain those communication skills to let somebody know that it's hurtful or that they need to stop? Or even going to a trusted adult if they need to, depending on the situation. But really being able to speak up for yourself. We do a lot of role playing around different ways to maybe address the situation. For some people, you can diffuse it more with direct conversation. With others, you might need to engage adults. With others, you might be able to diffuse the situation by avoiding those individuals and just focusing and spending time with your friends. There are lots of different ways to address the bullying situation. So coming up with what are those strategies in terms of that empowerment piece.
What are the ways kids are most bullied now? You laid out a set of scenarios earlier, something about being left out. I mean, it seems like, again, when I was growing up, we didn't have social media, you're right, and that's a whole new world. If I wasn't invited to a party, I had no idea, and I was happier for it, I'm sure. Now, everyone would know everything. I mean, when I think of bullying, I think of, being pushed around or something to that effect. It's kind of a physical sort of bullying. Now, how do you define bullying? Go over those lists again, and what's the most common type of bullying you're seeing?
Well, it's not just being physically pushed around, right? It's unkind words, so it's more of a verbal abuse. It could be more of a physical abuse like you were talking about. It could be more of social icing out. There are lots of different ways in which people bully. And the most insipid one that we're seeing right now is clearly that social piece, because you can't turn it off. Social media is on 24 hours a day. Children have access to it all of the time. So people make negative comments and call each other names, and you can do it under different aliases. So there's a lot of different ways where there's that anonymity piece that really fosters that negative experience.
I'm looking at this higher risk. Kids on YouTube are the most likely to be cyberbullied, followed by Snapchat, then TikTok, then Facebook. So do you agree?
Social media.
Yeah, also, do you agree with that? And why would someone on YouTube be more likely to be bullied? Do you agree with that list I just read?
Well, sometimes, for example, people can say or do things that can be misperceived, and that misperception can then lead to, innocent individuals being bullied. And I do believe that, again, the anonymity piece really gives people an opening in a way that we didn't have it before. It's harder face-to-face to be mean to somebody or to be physical with somebody because they're a person standing in front of you, as opposed to this person that you don't know on YouTube.
So on YouTube, I guess what's happening is someone can say some terrible comment and they don't really even have to identify who they are. So I could put something of myself out there, and then people attack it and say it's no good or say terrible things about it, but the people saying those things don't even have to identify who they are. Is that right?
That's correct. And then once one person starts to put that out there, then a lot of times groupthink really increases those negative comments as well. So if you have 1, 2, 3 people who are starting to say things that are negative, then all of a sudden you have 30, 40, 50. It compounds on itself.
Well, now that's very depressing. That depresses me. What about Snapchat? What's the deal with Snapchat?
Well, Snapchat, basically, individuals can put up stories, and it depends on what kinds of filters you put on. So you can open it up to just friends, or you can open it up to everyone. And my suggestion always is to really, on social media in particular, and things like Snapchat, where you might be putting up more personal information, to really just have people that you know in your filters.
And as a clinical psychologist, what do you recommend to parents as far as social media, as far as an age, as far as how much they should monitor it? You know, I don't know if you have kids, but when do they get access to this stuff? You know, as a clinical psychologist, what do you recommend about social media?
So there are actual limits on the age range for social media, but are typically not followed. And my suggestion is really teaching responsible use of social media. So what would that look like? When we're on social media, using it for the purposes of communicating with your friends or putting out things that are inspiring, right? Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Making think posts as opposed to just having your whole life up there. So being thoughtful about what you're putting up there. Also teaching children that they are on stage when they post things, and that once you post, those pieces never really go away. So by teaching responsible social media, I think it's a misnomer to think that we can avoid social media altogether, because it's a part of the way children, teens, young adults, it's part of their communication patterns at this point. But using it wisely and for helpful purposes, that's what we really want to teach.
Are we getting better at that or not?
I think it's just like what you're saying, you know, with all the social emotional learning that is in schools, with all of the supports of, I was just in a school and they had think posts listed, and that there's been more information sessions. And so we are definitely educating our youth about the necessity for this kind of appropriate use of social media. But when it comes right down to it, there are those impulsive responders or those individuals who really aren't looking at other people's social media with respect. And that's where we're really getting into trouble. So raising our communities with this idea of dignity and respect for all is really important.
Very good. Okay, that sets the table for our discussion, and it's an important one about bullying. And we'd love to hear from you. There's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? Great opportunity to call in and talk about this topic. We will take a break. Come back with more right after this.